Welcome back to another episode of Between Two Clouds. I'm Danny Hunt. Our guest today is Eric Vanags. Eric is a technology advisor out of Virginia Market. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, Danny. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, glad you're here. I didn't tell you this, but I had planned to start with today's episode judging folks' backgrounds, their office backgrounds. You know, the software that we use here, we generally don't use these virtual backgrounds. You changed your office up on me. I think, again, not as exciting of one to judge. I like what you've got there, but it's a little bit different than the last time we spoke.
Yeah, that's for sure. First thing, I really appreciate that you clarified with the backgrounds, my virtual backgrounds, because if you were talking backgrounds for hire, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'm just kidding. But no, virtual backgrounds, yeah, this is, we have to change it to the natural beauty behind me rather than the pictures I had up in my office of my family at the beach. It probably would not have been applicable for this session.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think there's a number of us are here that are glad that we don't do background checks. Just kidding, of course. Just kidding, of course. So, who is Eric? What brought you here?
Yeah, great question. So, sometimes they say in life things come full circle. And I think my story is that of how I ended up here at Opex. So I am, as you know, the FNG TA at the OPEX, right? I've been with Opex now 5 months. And I think my journey started back in 1997 when I was an intern. I had an internship in college. I played college lacrosse, so my time was limited where I could squeeze in an internship. But I finally got an internship with the Baltimore Spirit, a professional indoor soccer team that no one's ever heard of. But didn't get the job with the Ravens, didn't get the job with the Orioles, so we went with indoor soccer. So I was excited to show up my first day of work. I find myself in the arena. I get to the office to report to my boss. So my boss comes out to greet me. Turns out no other than the current CSO at Opex, Rich Nowalk. So Rich will tell you this story, it'll make you laugh. But again, being a college lacrosse player, I walked in about 6'3", 230. And Rich is more of let's say a long distance runner's build, if you know Rich. Yes. So he had all these grander ideas of telling me to stuff envelopes and go to the post office and go get lunch for him. And he was going to boss his intern around. But when I came in, that changed quickly. But we hit it off and became great friends. We've stayed in touch through the years. We actually worked together for 4 years at sports endeavors in the sporting goods industry in Chapel Hill. We worked together there for 4 years, and we went our separate ways. Rich found himself in technology. I found myself in medical sales for the past 22 years. But we stayed in touch throughout, and especially the last 10 years or so, I really watched how his career was going, specifically with Opex, and how successful that was. And it really piqued my interest in technology, knowing that technology is something that every industry has, every company uses. There's a place for it everywhere. So periodically when I'd see him, I'd ask him, hey, Rich, you guys hiring? Kind of tongue in cheek. He's like, no, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Well, lo and behold, my youngest daughter's a travel soccer player. We find our way down to Raleigh quite a bit. And we go down there and we stay with Rich. So we were down in December, stayed with him at his house. When he walks in, he's like, hey, Vanags, you got some time to talk? And I looked at him, I said, is it time? He goes, let's talk. Our conversations led to me being here as the TA for Opex in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm so excited. It's the culture that really brought me here. I know that's very cliche, but meeting you, knowing Rich for all these years, everyone else at Opex, it's a place that everyone would want to work at. And being able to provide solutions for customers, that's really my goal. And that's even what I did in medical sales. So it's a natural pivot. And then seeing specifically how technology is applied in medical and in the healthcare space, I thought it was just a natural fit for me to make this move.
I love that story. At first I questioned how you made that pivot, but now that I know that you're really good friends with Rich Nowalk, yeah, you didn't really have a difficult interview process, did you?
Well, he stepped back. He said he could not be involved in the process.
I hear you. Yeah.
I interviewed with 12 other Opex employees, and I kid you not, it was 12. I think it was easier for me to get into Pentagon when I sold medical equipment than it was to get into the Raleigh office.
That's great, man. I'm so glad you're here. So AI, I know is something that you were planning to talk about for a little bit. It's a big topic for us. We're working with our clients on this quite a bit. IVA seems to be a common theme. I've watched you go all in on this. Why have you decided to focus on this piece?
No, that's a great question. I think for me, coming over to technology, the one thing I learned was we have more acronyms here than we do in healthcare, which is mind blowing. So when I joined 5 months ago, I said, man, I have so much to learn in this space, but you know what's really relevant and the buzzword across every industry is AI. Just like you said, everyone's using AI where they think they are, right? They don't really know how to implement it. So AI, and specifically IVA in healthcare, it's been such a game changer. And there's actually a great case study of a large healthcare system up in the Northeast that was a little bit ahead of the game and had implemented IVA many years ago. And the reason being was they had a couple challenges. They were finding that they had overwhelming amount of phone calls coming in with the same routine questions. It was, what time is your office open? What are the directions to get to your office? Can I schedule an appointment? Can I refill a prescription? Are my test results back? So you had all these questions coming in that were pretty repetitive. On top of that, they had the issue of staff shortage. They just did not have enough folks working in their call center. So they partnered with a provider and customized an IVA for them that was able to answer 60% of those calls that came in that revolved around those 5 topics I mentioned before. So they were able to free up time for their agents that really needed to speak to patients that had true issues, that needed that consulting, that one-on-one human interaction. So it alleviated those challenges right out of the gates for them, which was huge. But the other thing they realized then was that IVA could do the same job as roughly 12 human agents. So by implementing that IVA, they were able to save significantly on cost. So that IVA in the first year answered roughly, I think it was about 200,000 calls, the same amount that would have taken about 12 agents to do. And they found that actually the savings was significant, about $600,000 a year for this healthcare system. Yeah, and their break-even point was only 6 or 7 months in. So the ROI on implementing IVA, not just in healthcare, but in other industries, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it was mind-blowing to me to see those figures. So not only did they save money, they were able to improve the patient experience, which is huge. In healthcare, everything's about the patient experience.
Yeah.
You have a survey about every topic you had in that visit, from the phone call to the time you discharged if you stayed. So being able to answer those calls in less than a minute with the IVA that would have taken several minutes on hold with human agents was an improvement to the patient experience. Getting those answers right away was an improvement. And frankly, it helped the agents. The agents were not bogged down with those same questions, and they were truly able to converse and have those consultations with the patients that needed it. So it was a time savings. It improved the agent's experience, the patient experience, and bottom line is they saved a significant amount of money by doing this.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I think it's easy to focus a lot on the savings, right? Because they're meaningful. The ROI, when you look at some of these engagements, it's incredible. And the improvement to operations, I think what the technology does, especially when you start looking at the customer experience, it's awesome. Like, I think those are 2 easy ones, but you brought up 2 things that I don't hear people talk about enough. And one of them, and this is a common theme, is, companies struggle to find talent in call centers. That's not an easy job to hire for. And the turnover, in these contact centers, these call centers, customer experience centers, it's wild. And so, a lot of companies have used this as a way to supplement those gaps that they've got in people, and then the people that they've got there, they're not handling those boring, mundane calls. They're engaged in, more in-depth, more strategic conversations. And so their experience is better, especially when you start layering on things like, summarization, agent assist, the technologies that enable them. So yeah, cool story. I appreciate you sharing that, Eric. And I'm glad that's a space that you've decided to focus on. Glad that you're here, man. And I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with me today.
Thanks, Danny. Always a pleasure.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend, Eric.
You too, Danny. Take care.
See you.